New York City has a budget larger than most countries. It spends $127 billion a year. And right now, in 2026, it has a $12 billion hole in that budget. How does the richest city on Earth run out of money? A city with a $122 to $127 billion budget should not be in crisis. That is more spending power than most countries. Yet New York City is staring down a combined $12 billion budget gap across just 2 years. The numbers do not add up, literally. In 2026, the official shortfall is $2.2 billion. The next year, it explodes to $10.4 billion. That is straight from the city's own comptroller and budget books. This is not a rounding error or a blip. It is a hole big enough to swallow entire agencies. For a place that runs subways, schools, hospitals, and pays over 300,000 employees, the idea that it cannot cover its own bills sounds like a bad joke. But these are verified numbers, not headlines. The scale is staggering. The richest city on Earth, with a $127 billion checkbook, is running a $12 billion tab it cannot pay. So how did the books get this far out of balance? Comptroller Mark Levine's numbers pull back the curtain on how this crisis got baked in. The city's own audit shows a pattern, line items that look balanced on paper, but in reality are ticking time bombs. Take cash assistance. The Adams administration budgeted $860 million for fiscal year 2026. The department's own projections say the real bill is closer to $1.7 billion. That is not a small oversight. That is nearly double. And it is not just one program. The comptroller's memo lists a $2.2 billion shortfall for 2026, exploding to $10.4 billion for 2027. These are not shocks from Wall Street or Washington. They are gaps that started with the city's own budget books. Under-budgeting was not an accident. It was a tactic, balancing the numbers by pretending major costs did not exist. Now the bills are landing all at once, and the hole is too deep to fill with one-time fixes. The crisis is homegrown, and the receipts are all in the city's official reports. The hits did not stop with under-budgeted programs. Federal support, once a lifeline, was yanked. Medicaid and SNAP reimbursements dropped by $750 million, gone thanks to cuts in Washington. City officials say FEMA pulled back $80 million in shelter funds, which are now tangled up in court. That number is still waiting on paperwork, but the cash crunch is real. Health insurance for city workers blew past projections too. Instead of the 5.5% premium hike the budget allowed, the bill jumped 12.2%. That is a $539 million overrun just for 1 year's coverage. Meanwhile, the city's rainy day fund is basically dust. Reserves have been drained to the point where there is nothing left to cushion the blow. All these shocks hit at once, not just a math problem. It was a perfect storm of federal clawbacks, runaway costs, and empty reserves. The deficit did not just grow, it ballooned. Suddenly, every option on the table, including taxes, cuts, and layoffs, became a political fight for survival. The two plans on the table could not be further apart. Mayor Mamdani's tax package is blunt, hit the wealthiest New Yorkers and the city's biggest corporations with higher rates. That means a 2-point income tax surcharge for those making over $1 million, projected to pull in $4.03 billion. Add a corporate tax hike to 9% for the largest firms, another $2.5 billion, if Albany signs off. Finally, a 0.5% annual tax on luxury pied-à-terre apartments aimed squarely at out-of-state owners is supposed to net $500 million a year. The mayor insists this trio of taxes can fill the gap without touching property taxes or slashing core services. The city council fires back with a $6 billion counteroffer. No new income taxes, but a 9.5% property tax hike. $3.7 billion from that alone, plus $500 million from selling off city assets. The rest comes from efficiency savings and targeted spending cuts. Council Speaker Menon calls it the only realistic path, but the mayor warns it will drive up rents and squeeze homeowners. Neither side is budging. Meanwhile, the bond market is watching. Moody's, S&P, and Fitch all warn of a potential downgrade if the standoff drags on. And just the threat has already widened the city's borrowing costs by 15 basis points. The message is clear. Every day of deadlock makes the crisis more expensive. Trash pickup, subway repairs, after-school programs. None of these are safe. When the city's budget gap hits the street, it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. Sanitation crews face hiring freezes. Buses and trains run on thinner schedules, with maintenance pushed back and breakdowns piling up. Libraries cut weekend hours. Public hospitals warn of longer waits and fewer beds, especially for mental health and ER care. Shelters and food pantries brace for reduced funding, just as demand spikes. Caseworkers in Child Protective Services see caseloads stretch even further, with overtime slashed and burnout rising. Teachers get pink slips, and class sizes start to creep up. Parks lose seasonal staff, so playgrounds and ball fields go untended. The city's most basic promises, safe streets, clean neighborhoods, and help when you need it, suddenly look shaky. For thousands of frontline workers and families who depend on these services, the crisis is not abstract. It's a daily reality, and the safety net is already fraying. New York runs a $127 billion budget, yet the bills don't add up. As the city scrambles to close a $12 billion hole, chaos isn't a distant threat. It's the daily reality.